Hey everyone, my name is JJ Paulson. I'm a student entrepreneur and co-founder of the tech startup Perch. I want to invite you for coffee and conversation on our weekly series, Coffee Talks. We're here to showcase the heartbeat of Gainesville's entrepreneurial spirit. I want to give a quick thank you as this series is made possible by Afternoon Roasting and Seven Ashes Productions. So grab your favorite mug, settle in, and let's explore the exciting world of entrepreneurship together. Now let's meet this week's guest. How are we doing? I'm JJ Paulson. I'm a co-founder of Perch, and I'm joined here by Brad Carson. So, Brad, I'll let you just quickly, briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll jump right into things.
All right, so as he said, my name is Brad Carson. So I recently moved to Gainesville and opened a holistic health and wellness center here in Gainesville. My professional background is pretty diverse. It stems from the Marine Corps. I started my journey on September 11th. That led me to join the Marine Corps as an officer. And from that point on, dealt with numerous physical, mental, emotional, mental health injuries. And that led me to start a health and wellness business where I work with not only the general public, but I work with the veteran community free of charge. In my personal opinion, if you're a veteran, you don't owe me a dime. You've given more than your fair share. And so my goal is just to bring ease and relaxation and, stress management tools to not only veterans, but to the general public.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to hear a little bit about, I think the beginning of your journey is really cool because before, when you were going through even initial training, you suffered catastrophic physical injuries, which made you completely pivot what you were even coming into the Marine Corps to do. So can you touch a little bit about that and how that affected you?
Sure. So when I went to Officer Candidate School, which is a 10-week ass kicking, if you will, I started that program, and it was about 3 weeks into the program. I was coming down a rope and I fell, and I landed my feet at the ground and my butt hit the ground. So I jammed my left leg up into my hip socket. I tore all the cartilage in my left hip. I dislocated my pelvis at the SI joint. I crushed L4, L5, and L5, S1, which are the two bottom discs in my spine. I have some other ones that are crooked in my neck, C3 through 6, and now C1 is non-surgically just fused to my skull. And so at the time, I just kept going, kept training. The initial officer training school is basically a tryout. So we started with over 300 guys, and we graduated about 130. And so there's a huge attrition rate. And so people are, breaking their leg, dropping left and right. So when I was injured, I got right back up. I knew I was hurt. I didn't know how bad it was.
Right.
I just, kept going, kept training, and thought, if I can finish this program, then, so be it. I'll just, continue on my way. So by the grace of God, I, continued and managed to finish the program. It's funny, I remember my first, and the physical fitness test was a 3-mile run. My first 3-mile run time was just over 18 minutes, 18:09. And then my last one was 28:30.
Yeah.
The problem was my hip was torn so bad. Normally when you run, you stride out.
Right.
But my hip was torn so badly that I couldn't. So I was, doing this the whole time. And so I, managed. They knew I was injured. It was kind of this, unspoken rule that, if you don't go to medical, then you don't, everyone pretty much just leave you alone. And so that's, what I did. I knew that if I had gone through and went to medical, I would have been separated from the program, would have had to reapply. They only offer the program 3 times a year.
Wow.
And it took me a year just to get in because this is, post September 11th, they had, a huge amount of people who were applying to become a Marine officer.
So was it just specifically the event of September 11th that led you to want to become a Marine?
Yes. So that was the first time in my life where I felt helpless.
Wow.
So I was a junior at Sacred Heart University, which is in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Yep.
So not far from New York City.
Yeah, no.
So it's funny. I remember when it first occurred, my first instinct was, I got to go. I'm going to drive to New York City. It's and then quickly it was, all the roads were shut down and just kind of go home and, classes were canceled. And it was just all right, what am I doing here? And it just seemed like there were bigger things that were going on in the world. and I wanted to be a part of that. I was a criminal justice major and had aspirations of, working for the FBI or the CIA. That was kind of my dream.
Right.
And had thought about it, actually spoken to the, the recruiting officers for the officer candidate program prior to September 11th. And then when that happened, it's funny. I remember the first phone call I made was to the recruiting office.
Wow.
That was, it was probably, that happened at, just after 9 a.m. I probably called them at 10. They didn't answer, but I'm sure they were pretty busy that day.
Right.
But yeah, so that was, that was it for me. And I actually almost dropped out of college. I started the process, went around, was dropping out, and then ended up, I had someone who was an Army veteran say, this isn't going to be over 6 months from now. It's not going to be over 2 years from now. It's not going to be over. So he said, stay in, graduate, get your degree, and you can go in as an officer. And that was the only argument that made sense to not dropping out. It's like, you go in now, you're a gun. You go in, when you graduate, you have the chance of having more of an impact and being able to lead Marines.
That's
So that
awesome.
was,
I mean, that's just really, really powerful. My uncle did the exact same thing. He wanted to go into the Marine Corps prior to college, but a similar vet, I think they almost had like the exact same conversation.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So you made it through the training, and then what was next? Because I know eventually you told me that you did end up at the Pentagon. Did you try to be stationed somewhere and then just physically it didn't work out, or was it immediately going to the Pentagon?
So the first position I was given was in Quantico. So the training school for the Marine Officer Program is in Quantico, Virginia.
Okay.
So I went through that training program. There's a follow-up school after that, but due to my injuries, I wasn't allowed to start the next school.
Okay.
So, had hip surgery, still rehabbing that, and, was trying to figure out the whole back situation, avoided major back surgery.
Yep.
I actually wanted to do it at the time. Said that I thought that was the only thing that was going to keep me on active duty, but I couldn't even get a surgeon to do it. They said, with the extent of your injuries, my age, I think I was 23 or 24 years old at the time, they said, don't do this. It's going to cause a domino effect up your back. So it's going to be not only fusing your pelvis to the vertebrae above that, to the one above that, but eventually it's just going to cause this domino effect to where your whole spine is going to have to be fused, and then I, can't bend over and tie my shoes anymore.
Right.
So, yeah, so I was given what's called TAD. It's just an additional duty. I was just thrown to the wolves. They just gave me a job. And the first job I gave me was working in the advisor program. So basically the advisor program at the time was, Marine units, small teams, ranging, I would say 12 to, 20 or 30 men. And they would deploy to Iraq, Afghanistan primarily at the time, and then teach them how to run an army. That was part of the, initial plan to pull out was, we need to get these guys up to speed and let them, take things into their own hands. So I worked with them, training, doing, practicing, live fire shoots and every weapon system and casualty evacuations and all of that. And yeah, great job. And then soon after that position, I was then transferred to Headquarters Marine Corps, where I worked for the Commandant, who's the head general of the Marine Corps.
Oh, wow.
And it was an amazing experience. It was strange, to say the least. I remember my first day there, I was the only lieutenant in the building. It's not, it's pretty much just generals and, senior enlisted. And the fact that I was there was very odd to me. Clearly, I either impressed someone or pissed someone off to get stuck there.
Right.
But yeah, it was an honor to, be able to work for the head general of the Marines, and I ran his event schedule. So anytime he would get invited to an event, a lot of times it would be finding a suitable representative to get in, to fill in for his place.
Right.
And I also helped run the what's called the Marine Corps Action Tracking System. So it's a computer program where everything, every mission, every logistical item, everything that goes on is tracked through this computer program. And so we, helped maintain and make sure things got done and everything got, accomplished in a timely manner.
Right.
And then the other main responsibility that I had was I used to compose all of the condolence letters on behalf of the entire Marine Corps.
Wow.
Yeah. So heavy, and I will say that it was the best and worst job I've ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, the responsibility is awesome, but I remember, getting there in the morning. I would get there at get to the Pentagon at 5 a.m., go to the gym. Walking to my office, I remember literally thinking, it's like, dear God, today, like no letters today.
Yeah.
That would be my little, mantra, my prayer. And, some days that happened, a lot of days that wasn't the case. And it was heavy. But at the time, what I would do is just, suppress all of my emotions. In my specific office, I was the only officer in there. It was, a couple other senior enlisted guys.
Right.
And so I can't be, sitting at my desk, breaking down, having all these emotions just flooding out of me. So I just, pushed everything down, suppressed everything, and, didn't realize how much of a toll that took until, eventually I, had a breakdown and, ended up in the hospital and just didn't know why.
Yeah.
And, it was the combination of, the physical injuries. I was on a lot of pain medication at the time, prescribed, but at the time, still, that has an effect.
Right.
And then,
No, definitely.
working, long, crazy hours, waking up every day at, 3:45 in the morning and getting home at, 8 o'clock at night. And yeah, it really took a toll. And, I wasn't sleeping. I actually fell asleep in the shower twice. Don't do that.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
So then I know, that eventually, obviously, you don't need to go into too much details about what you kind of went through in that time period, so don't feel like you need to overshare. But I know that led you to the Wim Hof method, which has kind of shaped you into like where you are today, and specifically what you've based your business off.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we would all love to hear how you kind of came about like the Wim Hof method, and then first of all, what the Wim Hof method even is.
Sure. So when I separated from the Marines, I didn't know what to do.
Right.
I, wasn't working at the time, was on disability, really suffering. I mean, you name it, I had it. PTSD, depression, anxiety, addiction. It's like I was the poster child for mental health. It just went,
Right.
down the tubes pretty fast.
Yeah.
And, I'd put on a lot. I put on about 75 pounds just from the injury, and started, again, we talked earlier about David Goggins, had my David Goggins moment, looked in the mirror and literally didn't recognize the person that I saw.
Right.
And so I started getting into, health and wellness, started getting back to, I went to the gym, and I remember the first day I was there, I went on the elliptical, and I think I made it about 15 minutes before it was just, the pain was just agonizing. And so fast forwarding, long story short, worked my way to get, back into shape.
Right.
And then, started working with athletes. I started actually at the Boys and Girls Club. Again, I just wanted that team, family environment around to surround myself with that I had in the Marines that I didn't have when I got out.
Right.
And so from there, I started coaching, working with some of the high school athletes, some of the guys on the football team, and just, fell in love with the whole coaching aspect. And then I was in the gym, in the locker room one day, and overheard a friend talking about Wim Hof and talking about, holding his breath and being able to do more push-ups while holding his breath than you possibly could before.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense to me. And so I was curious, and so he actually gave me the 10-week online program, just gave me this free bootleg copy. It was just like, hey man, just try it, see if you like it. So my initial draw to it was, as a strength and conditioning coach, looking at this saying, okay, I know a lot of athletes aren't breathing properly. They're not maximizing their oxygen potential. They're, leaving, a lot left in the tank just because they're simply not breathing right. And so I was looking at it from that perspective. So I do the program, and I start, it's basically a breath work practice when you're doing breathing exercises, which leads into a meditation. And then it's also using the practice of cold immersion. Mm-hmm. So just doing the breath work, I immediately noticed the mental health benefit.
Wow. I
just felt better. And I didn't understand why. I'd never meditated. I had never gone to a yoga class before. Never done any of this. I was typical Marine. I lift weights and,
right.
I lift heavy things. You know what I mean? So it was very foreign to me. But I couldn't get past this. Like, okay, I feel better. Mm-hmm. And so that was the initial draw to it. And so I finished this, 10-week course online. It just so happened that Wim was doing a workshop in New York City at the time. And I was living in New Hampshire, and I thought, I'd love to go just to meet him, say thank you. There was an instructor program at the time, but there was no, clear, this is how you get in. It was very, WIM was very much still starting his company.
Right.
And so, I went there, typical Marine, the event starts at noon, I got there at 9. And I'm thinking, if I can be the first person there, maybe I can get a spot right up front, say thank you, and, ask him, how I become an instructor. And so I get there and, there's no one there. I'm the only person there. This is probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Right.
And so I walk around back and the gate to the parking lot's open and Wim is sitting outside by himself, just blowing up one of these giant 10-person inflatable pools just with his mouth. And I'm like, of course he doesn't have a pump. Like, this is WIM HOF. He's just sitting there. So
Right.
anyway, so I walk over. I'm like, Wim. He's like, yeah. I'm like, do you need some help? He's like, yeah, man, blow up a pool. So I'm like, all right. So I sit there. I start blowing up a pool. And, thank God I'd practiced this breathwork technique or I probably would have passed out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I finished, blowing up the pool. And I'm like, all right, man, what's next? He's like, we got 3 more. He's like, you do that. I'll start. I'm like, all right. So I, do what I'm told and, finish helping to set up for this event. And mentioned, my goal and, what I wanted to do and how I thought this was beneficial, not only for the veteran community, but just, people in general. It's like just everyone is stressed out nowadays. And learning how to, manage stress and control that response is invaluable. And so I said, I'd love to be an instructor. He's like, great, you start today. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you know what to do. He's like, I'll cue the breath work, well, you just walk around, just, help people out. When we do ice baths, I'll have a pool, you'll have a pool. So, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? So my first workshop experience was about 500 people in New York City, taking 10 people at a time into an ice bath.
So you thought you were going for a workshop, but ended up
teaching
and running the workshop.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then I officially went through the instructor program and, had been working with Wim ever since. I've spoken on his tour in New York and California. I've gotten to teach with him in Poland.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been a wild journey.
That must have been almost like a surreal experience, right? Because you're meeting someone that played such a pivotal role in, you improving your life. And he was like, it's almost like, because obviously everyone says don't meet you never want to meet your idols because they're just going to let you down.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like this guy let you down
so
at all.
we were talking at one point and, sharing my story, and he just stops mid-sentence and he stares deep in my eyes. And I'm like, what is he doing? And he looks at me and he goes, we're connected. And I'm like, cool, man. I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to be fanboy and say it, but, I'm like, great. If you, awesome. So I'm leaving the event, and he's like, if you need anything, here's my phone number, here's my email. I'm thinking, who is this guy? What is going on? So I sent him an email as I'm on the train going back to my car, heading back home. I sent him an email just saying, thank you, that was great. Didn't really expect much, didn't know if I would hear from him. And it was 2 minutes later, he's like, Brad, great, we'll talk soon. And we've been friends ever since. And
wow.
He's been, it started off more as a mentor, and now I look at him like a brother. He's just, family to me and has given me so much, and that's part of my mission now, where, he wasn't asking me for money. He was just saying, here's a guy who needs help. I'm going to give it to him.
Right.
So that's, my way of paying it forward is, what I'm doing now and opening my center and working with veterans and
wow,
just helping people the way he helped me.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal story, right? It's like being able to meet your idol in that sense, and then essentially carrying out exactly, wanting to carry out almost exactly what he did for you, for other people. It's it's super honorable. So what led you to come to Gainesville specifically to, carry on that journey?
So obviously with training with the cold, I don't mind the cold.
Right.
I respect the cold. I don't necessarily like it, but I don't
Okay.
dislike it either. But the doom and gloom of 6-month-long winters in the Northeast in New Hampshire, really started taking its toll. Wanted to get out. I love being out in nature and, having sunshine on my face. And so I, wanted to move to Florida, and the University of Florida has an outstanding program. It's called Health and Human Performance.
Yep.
They have a combined PhD and master's program that I'll be starting in the fall. And so that was the initial draw. And then I moved down, sold the house in New Hampshire, moved down here literally with my dog and what fit in my car, and had always wanted to, find a property, build, a retreat center, a wellness center, and honestly didn't think I could afford it at the time. And, I found this property, here in Gainesville. It's out on 10 acres. I know there's a house there and a barn. And I thought, I have some money saved up from, selling my house. And I'm like, okay, like, no bullshit. Like, what is this going to take?
Right.
So I put in, an outdoor yoga studio, a large fire pit. There's an outdoor barrel sauna, hot tub. There's a couple clawfoot bathtubs that I use for ice baths. I have a cold plunge tub, which I use every morning. It's a little bit different because it's moving cold water.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more of a challenge. If you're sitting in still cold water, you get this buffer layer of heat around you. But in the moving water, it's constantly stripping that layer of heat, so you'll reduce your core temperature much faster. So I, have that. And yeah, I've just built this center to, bring people out to help, teach people not only the Wim Hof method, but I do all kinds of, holistic healthcare and coaching. So I also teach, the Department of Veterans Affairs has a program. It's called Whole Health. It's their version of holistic healthcare. So looking at how, nutrition and exercise and community and relationships and all of these things are contributing to your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. And so I'm starting a new veteran support group. It meets every Tuesday. So I named it Tuesdays with Maureen. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the book Tuesdays with Maury.
No.
It's a Mitch Albom book. Basically, it's a former student goes to see his college professor who's he's dying. He has terminal disease.
Okay.
And he goes and meets with him every Tuesday, and they have these wonderful conversations about life and how to be happy and healthy and strong and all these different things. So I named the group Tuesdays with Maureen.
Awesome.
So it's going to meet every Tuesday evening, and it'll be a veteran support group. Teaching everything from holistic health and wellness to, learning how to manage stress and just build community and just, build, a solid veteran environment for, the Gainesville community.
I mean, it's amazing. Like truly is amazing. I'm going to ask like two more things to kind of wrap it up.
Okay.
First, if I want to learn more about home wellness and health.
Home health and wellness, but yes.
Health, okay,
close
my
enough.
bad. Flip it too. Home health and wellness. Where can I go? How can I learn more about that and get in touch with you?
Sure.
So I'll have that be the first.
So I do have a website. It's ltbradcarson.com. So like Lieutenant Brad Carson.
Yeah.
.com.
Okay.
So there is information on there about events. Not only do I do the veterans group, I also hold regular Wim Hof method workshops. I also teach a morning breathwork meditation class at YogaPod, which is every Monday morning. So I have that, and I'm going to be starting more events. Again, I'm starting with the Tuesdays with Marine Veteran Support Group. I'm going to be adding a Thursday evening just for general public, and then my goal is do things every weekend as well, just to have more events and teach people things like breathwork and meditation and learning how to manage stress, and just getting out in nature. I think we've lost touch with who we are as humans. We live in these boxes. We have these heated and air conditioned homes and environments, and we're never subjecting ourselves to the elements, to nature, and we've kind of lost touch. And I think it's having a huge effect not only on physical health but on mental health and overall stress levels.
Wow. Okay. And then lastly, to kind of wrap it up, going back to the veterans support group, if someone wanted to, help and support that, like what would be the best way to do so?
As a veteran, join the group.
Either one. As
a veteran,
and from the outside, people that just genuinely want to support.
That's a good question. So it's funny because I've been so solo on my mission. So as a veteran, join the group.
Okay.
And as someone who's not a veteran, tell a veteran about the group.
Okay.
We have this, huge network in the military where we have a team surrounding us at all times. And when we get out, a lot of times we're left to our own devices, and that can be a good thing and that can be a detrimental thing. So, just joining the group and, coming and attending, and everyone who comes is a teacher and everyone who comes is a student. And so it's just, learning how to, regain the community that we lost upon separation.
Okay. That was amazing. Like, that was amazing. I mean, this has probably been like one of my favorite talks that we've done. So really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
And sharing your journey and your story with us. Yeah, I mean, it's been an honor being able to sit here and listening. So we'll wrap it up there. I'm sure he's gonna hang around, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you.